The Wilds of Eldraine Commander pre-constructed decks have now been fully released. There is the green-white Selesyna, Virtue and Valor, with commanders Elevir of the Wild Court and Gilwyn, Casting Director, and the blue-black Dimir, Fey Dominion, with commanders Tegwil, Duke of Splendor, and Alela, Cunning Conqueror. You've got burning questions, and I've got answers. Let's monkey around. This video is going to take a look at the Virtue and Valor precon, and the first question is, what is the thing? You'll be casting spells that will attach enchantment auras to the creatures on your battlefield. Those creatures have all sorts of synergies with both enchantments and auras. Setessan Champion grows in strength and draws cards as enchantments enter the battlefield through its Constellation ability. Umbra Mystic grants all auras Totem Armor, which is a niche mechanic but allows you to destroy an aura attached to a creature rather than the creature itself when that creature faces destruction. Each commander has the ability to generate enchantment auras on their own through the new roll token mechanic, while the deck list has some aura-based haymakers. Mantle of the Ancients lets you recur any number of enchantments from the graveyard to attach to the enchanted creature while giving it +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to it. And Bear Umbra has that Totem Armor mechanic again, but more importantly lets you untap all your lands when the enchanted creature attacks. In one sentence, auras will be getting you value as they enter the battlefield while enabling your creatures to run roughshod all over the table. Which commander is better? My gut instinct when I compared the two was Elevir of the Wild Court by a modest amount, but with more time, the positions of her and the better commander, Gilwyn, Casting Director, have more or less flipped. Unless someone has a Torpor Orb or another anti-ETB piece on their board, Gilwyn isn't a 1 green and a white 2/3 human bard. He is a 3/4 creature with Ward 1 from the Royal Roll I would give him with his ability as he enters the battlefield. That stat line boost is nothing to scoff at, and while Ward 1 isn't the most impressive, every deterrence, no matter the size, is impactful when it comes to your commander. Once he is in play, seated comfortably in his director chair, he'll be ready to hand out 1 of 3 rolls to every other non-token creature that comes into play under your control. The Royal Roll grants +1/+1 and Ward 1. The Sorcerer Roll grants +1/+1 and whenever the enchanted creature attacks, scry 1. Finally, the Monster Roll grants +1/+1 and Trample. The consistency of enchantments entering the battlefield and how auras interact with your creatures give him the edge for me. Core Spirit Dancer doesn't come into play as a 0/2 creature waiting for the bonus value from aura buffs you cast on her. With a roll token placed on her as she enters the battlefield, you're looking at a 3/5 creature for 1 and a white. Timber Paladin is a brand new card printed for this commander precon that gets bigger and gets more keywords as auras become attached to him. If the Paladin enters the battlefield with a roll token, all of a sudden you have a 4/4 creature for 1 and a green. New Wilds of Eldraine creature Tanglespan Lookout is drawing you a card whenever an aura enters the battlefield. When you have Gilwyn, every aura spell will draw you a card as they enter the battlefield, and every non-token creature will too. There are all sorts of these interactions that, when put together, make for what I believe is a more consistent deck. All of this is not to say that Elevir of the Wild Court is lacking strength, especially with the roll token that only she is able to create. The Virtuous Roll gives the enchanted creature +1/+1 for every enchantment on the battlefield. This can get out of hand pretty quickly, as you can imagine. Elevir can make these to attach to another target creature whenever she ETBs or attacks. She also draws you a card whenever an enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player. If you hit face with 4 such creatures, you draw 4 cards. The way I see it is that she suffers from win more syndrome, where everything looks fantastic if everything is going as planned. If your Virtuous Roll token is giving your Enchanted Sun Titan +8/+8 because you have 8 enchantments on the battlefield, you're more than likely in a solid position anyway because you have those 7 other enchantments in play. Same goes for the card drawing ability. The creatures in this deck have very little evasion on their own, demanding more of a brute force approach to break through, meaning that if your creatures can go wide enough, both without dying and without fear of a crackback, also you can get a few drawn cards, you're again probably very happy with how the game is going already. Even the creation of the virtuous rolls have this issue, as after the first one on ETB that is placed on another target creature, Elevir needs to attack to create more of them. 4 toughness on turn 4 or 5 when you are able to first swing with her is cutting it close in surviving blocks. But even if she does survive, she will need a 3rd creature on the battlefield to target with the virtuous roll, since it cannot be placed on her and only one roll that you control can be placed on a creature at any given point in time. I'm sounding like a hater at this point. I'll own it. So I'll wrap up this section on a positive note by saying Elevir has the stuff to completely take over games from the onset and close them out quickly. Because if that ball gets rolling, she'll have a legion of virtuous 2020 creatures by her side that will not have lose in their vocabulary. Please take a second and subscribe to the channel. It means a whole lot to me. It's free for you, and you'll be getting all sorts of Commander content coming your way every week. Which Commander is more fun? I feel like this answer is about as objective as this subjective question can get. Gilwyn, Casting Director, is the more fun Commander. The flavor is a 10 out of 10 for the Director handing out rolls to creatures being cast. Like, it's just about perfect. And the variety of choices you have, I feel, are genuinely impactful. You want to beat people down with the Realm-Cloaked Giant, so you give him Trample through the monster roll. Or your flyer, Archon of Sun's Grace, isn't contested in the air, so you give it a Sorcerer roll to start scrying as it attacks, so you can have the best draws possible as the game progresses. There's a lot to love, as I think I've already demonstrated, so let's get on with it then. Best new card besides the Commanders. Just as there were 10 newly printed cards, 8 not including Commanders in the Fey Dominion precon, the same is true here in Virtue and Valor. The best new card of those 8 is the 3/2 white Unfinished Business. This is a sorcery that returns a target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. And not only do you get the creature, you get any 2 target auras or equipment in your graveyard recurred and attached to that target creature. This is a spell you want to draw into later on in the game when your graveyard has some stuff in there, so I don't think the double white pip is going to be prohibitive towards casting the spell in most games. Unfinished Business takes the top spot, because it's not only good in these enchantment decks, any deck heavy with equipment to strap onto creatures, and Voltron Commander decks are going to be thrilled to run this to re-establish a scary presence on the battlefield in short order. Favorite new card? My favorite new card is Liberated Livestock. Look at the cute animals playing around. They're having such a good time. Besides being adorable and having one of the most unique creature types I've seen, Cat Bird Ox, this spell can situationally be a force to be reckoned with. As a standalone, it's a 5 and a white 4/6 creature, and that leaves a lot to be desired. But when the creature dies, each animal returns, alone, no longer enjoying that beautifully depicted friendship. A 1/1 cat, a 1/1 flying bird, and a 2/4 ox will be created, and for each of them you can attach an aura card from your hand or graveyard. That is some serious value. Attach 3 auras to the livestock and dare your opponents to destroy it. Best non-land edition. I don't want this to be a boring video, so I want to show you this sick, nasty creature that actually does kickflips while winning you the game, but the reality is that this deck needs ramp, and badly. There are only 2 ramping artifacts and no ramping sorceries. It's a borderline war crime to be in green and not have a cultivate or rampant growth in your deck. So as boring as that is, pick up a rampant growth so your available mana can keep up with the rest of the table. Okay, also, Heronblade Elite is a cool mana dork that can get those counters from humans entering the battlefield because about 40% of your creatures are humans. Tack on a roll from Gilwyn, or better yet, a virtuous roll from Elevere, and the Heronblade Elite will become a truly elite mana dork. Most fun non-land edition. Yenna, Redtooth Regent, is a new creature from the Wilds of Eldraine. She is a 2, a white, and a green elf noble with 4 power and toughness. She can tap for 2 mana to create a token of a target enchantment, so long as it doesn't share a name with another permanent you control. If that enchantment is an aura, you untap Yenna and scry 2. Spending 2 mana to copy a roll token doesn't feel the best. But the drawn card and removal of another scary creature an opponent controls by copying Kenrith's transformation starts feeling better. And since she untaps because you targeted an aura, go ahead and tap her again to copy that Songbird's Blessing to accelerate your game even more by digging up double the free auras from your library. I think you're getting the picture. The fact that Yenna untaps when targeting an aura and can copy legendary enchantments to make non-legendary tokens could be very powerful in this deck. And copying stuff is fun, that's just how it is. Best budget non-land edition. Remember how I said earlier that the creatures in this precon are lacking in evasion? The 2 and 2 white Archon of the Wild Rose is an answer to that problem. The flying Archon creature with power and toughness of 4 grants all other creatures with an aura a base power and toughness of 4. And flying. Of the 31 creatures in the deck, this is a stat increase for 27 and a half of them. The half comes from the Timber Paladin, when it has 0 or only 1 auras on it. There really isn't that much more to add here. With a bunch of stronger and flying creatures, you'll be in a much better position to win the game. And hey, if you've got Elevere out there, you might just end up with a few fistfuls of cards in hand when you draw for all the enchanted creatures that can now more easily deal combat damage to players. Best Budget Land Edition. Scattered Groves is the selection here for 2 reasons. Number 1, it is a forest plains, which means that when you go digging for a forest or plains in your library, when you sacrifice the Crowsin Verge, you can grab this land to help fix your mana. It comes in tapped anyway, which surely feels better than playing it tapped. But such is life with a budget mana base. Number 2 is the cycling ability. Having that extra utility in case you're flooded or need to draw your 1 out is always helpful. Here's the real rub. I'm thinking about reworking this section to Budget Mana Edition to include artifacts, lands, dorks, whatever gives you mana. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. First card replaced. Danitha Capuchin, Paragon, is the first spell getting cut. This is one of 4 creatures that have a similar effect of reducing the mana cost of spells you cast. That is too many in my book. The big difference is that the others, Jukai Naturalist, Starfield Mystic, and Transcendent Envoy, are all 2 mana rather than 3. They are missing out on the sheer number of keywords Danitha offers, but all have their upside to make up for it. The Naturalist encompasses all enchantments, which there is one, Enchantress's Presence. The Mystic is the same in terms of mana reduction, but gets counters as enchantments you control enter the graveyard, which could get out of control with all the roll tokens flying around. And the Envoy has flying, which I think could play a big part in getting damage through when it gets auras strapped to it, with possible scry triggers from the Sorcerer roll to make sure you're drawing into good stuff. Honestly, I'm not losing sleep if any one of them, other than the Mystic, gets cut. Here we've got the cool cards for you to consider adding into the deck and marvel at, while I ask you again to please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let me know about that whole budget land versus mana edition thing. Bye!